Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us for our February 2021 questions and answers. Bill Giannone and I are going to attempt to answer some of the most recent questions that have been thrown at each of us over the last month or two. And so we're going to charge right in here. The very first question, I should have said, good morning, Billy.
Good morning, Dick. Don't worry about it. We have so much to cover. They'll be tired of hearing it from me in about an hour. So why don't you get right into it?
I agree. So we've been seeing a lot of promotion about the CREST library. What exactly is the CREST library? This email or text message has been thrown at us quite a bit in the last 3 weeks or so, and part of that is because the CREST library was just launched the 1st of February. In a very short answer, without overwhelming everybody, the CREST library is a members only or a paid subscription website for access to all kinds of great information related to the restoration and roofing industry. We have both articles and videos on the website for marketers, the same information or the same kinds of material, articles and videos for owners, for managers, specifically for technicians, specifically for roofers. We have a section on there on social media and how you would take advantage of social media in your restoration or roofing business. And then there are a bunch of webinars on there. These are the webinars that we've done where we've recorded them, and they are on there as well. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos, short version videos and long version videos, as well as short and long articles, everything all the way down to technicians and production for those technicians. The articles and the videos for those subscribers is only $99 a month. There's no long-term contract. You can cancel it anytime you want with a 30-day notice. And we have a pretty good selection of subscribers already. If you don't know and you're a CREST network member, you are automatically grandfathered into the CREST library. So every CREST network member, and we have a couple dozen or so, you're all automatically grandfathered in. You all have been given a username and a password to access that website. So $99 a month, you'll get a ton of info. That's all, Billy.
Thanks, Dick. I'm sure you'll be getting a lot more inquiries about all of that. How much water business should my marketers be producing every year? Dick and I were so proud and privileged to have presented our Restoration Marketing Specialist Certification class for the first time last week. It was very well attended. It was a great response. And actually, one of the most surprising things was there was really not a good consensus or understanding by both owners or marketers as to exactly how much business the marketer should be producing. So I'm going to try to simplify it for everybody, and we'll work kind of backwards to come up with that number. Let's face it, at the end of the day, an experienced marketer gets judged by the revenue, but the marketer really has very little to do with the revenue. The revenue is usually a byproduct of their efforts. So what I always like to say is, yes, the owners look at a return on investment, but what we like to look at CREST, and what we like to coach and train on, is the return on effort, not the return on investment. The return on effort is how much work does the marketer have to do to generate enough leads to generate enough final bottom line revenue. So if we work backwards, let's just take for an assumption that a residential loss on average is about $4,000. The number's closer to about $4,250 for a non-program loss. But let's just, for sake of ease, let's talk about $400,000 a year of what we're going to talk about. So $4,000 for a job and 100 jobs. If you want your marketer to generate $400,000 of revenue or 100 jobs a year, that's 8 jobs a month approximately. If you're happy with that number, and that's how we work, how do we get them to produce that much in leads? Well, now that goes back to how many leads produce 100 jobs. By and large, if you're a really good marketer and your processes for closing the jobs within your production staff is very good, then you should be able to close, let's call it 70% of your leads. So again, I'm going to round number it to 2/3. If you want to get 100 jobs to generate 400,000, you need 150 leads. Hope everybody's following the math without a blackboard here, but basically it's that simple. If you want your marketer to bring in about 400,000, you need to do 100 jobs at 4,000 a piece. So you need to generate 150 leads to get those 100 jobs. 150 leads doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're an inexperienced marketer, that's getting the phone to ring 3 to 4 times a week. Take a quick look at what your marketers are doing, or if you are a marketer listening to us, are you producing that much work right now? If not, that's what you need to do. So the most important thing is, don't put unrealistic expectations on your marketing staff as an owner. And as a marketer, don't promise or think that you could over deliver. Conversely, don't think that all is lost because you're not doing this. Sometimes a little tweak in how you're doing your work can result in a lot more leads coming through. In the class last week, Dick went over some really ingenious ways of how to maximize your time and how to maximize your opportunities by focusing on places and different lead sources where you can get the best return for your effort, that ROE that we want to refer to. So let's just say 400,000 is a good starting number. That's what we need. We need 150 leads. We need 12, 13 leads a month. Let's say you're an experienced marketer. What should an experienced marketer be bringing in? Well, we raised some eyebrows last week because the number that Dick and I usually work with our CREST members is $1 million. You need to generate $1 million if you're an experienced, aggressive marketer. And in just about every marketplace that our CREST members have their target markets, that is an achievable goal for a marketer. Now, let's run those numbers. $1 million of business is 250 jobs at 4,000 a job. So we're talking 20 jobs a month. In order to bring in 20 jobs a month, you need to generate 30 leads a month using that same math. So generating 30 leads a month, that's an easy target, guys. That's literally 1 lead a day. Every single day, you need to average 1 lead. Now, we can get very in-depth with you if you work with us as CREST members on exactly what it's going to take to get to 1 lead a day. But suffice it to say, can it be done? Absolutely. Is it currently being done? Absolutely. Is that an achievable goal? Absolutely. Do you need to work really hard to get there? Absolutely. I'm just here to tell you those are real numbers. If you want to be $1 million producer and everything that comes along with that, you need to understand what that means. $1 million producer basically means you have to get the phone to ring every single day. And you know what? In future webinars, I think one of the things we're going to talk about is exactly how to get to that number of 1 lead a day. It's a little too in depth to talk about right now. Just suffice it to say it can be done, and it's a lofty goal, and it's not something you should expect your marketer to do if they're only with you for 90 days or so. But if they've got a couple of years under their belt, it's definitely an achievable goal. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Bill. And if I can get the screen to move. Okay, so a number of our emails have been about the RMS certification course. The certification course was a brainchild of CREST 6-8 months ago, when it became apparent to us from all of our CREST network members that the marketers were struggling with understanding the big picture of what restoration marketing should entail. And then many of them, even though I've been coaching many of them for the last many years, it's very obvious that their failure to understand dealing down in the weeds, dealing with the little things that make so much difference. RMS is a certification course. It is stands for Restoration Marketing Specialist. That is a trademarked name, and that course is a 3-day intensive training that covers almost every aspect of restoration marketing. We didn't really leave any stone unturned. We covered each step of the marketing strategies that you need to do today. We talked about in this class how restoration marketing is so dramatically different from other types of marketing that's out in the world today. We talked about the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, the how of marketing in restoration. We talked about making it your own brand, personalization or personal branding. And we talked about what Bill just got done talking about, and that is about how to become $1 million producer as a marketer. Absolutely, any marketer that has been with a company for more than 12 months should certainly be on track to be producing $1 million a year. And that's in the restoration marketing for a restoration contractor. The good news is that the next class, because this one last week in Fort Myers sold out early, we already have half of the May 3rd, 4th, and 5th class already sold out as well. And that's going to be held in Atlanta. It's $797 per person, but if an owner attends with a marketer, the owner can attend free. Every owner should be attending this. We had a number of owners at last week's class here in Florida, and I believe every single owner at some point during the class came up to myself or Bill and told us how important it was for the owner to be there. We teach the owners how to hold the marketers accountable. And just very quickly, I want to tell you what the course entails. There are 10 different 90-minute modules. It's extensive and intensive. We cover the basics of marketing, how restoration marketing isn't like anything else. We cover how to market specifically. We talk about accountability and documenting the work that you're doing, the marketing you're doing, the different types of marketing that are out there, even right down to the psychology of marketing. And then Bill talks at length about understanding the entire marketing chain, from marketing to sales to production to collection. Bill talks about the financial understanding of restoration marketing. And then the owners and the administrators take on their marketers, what they think of their marketer versus what the marketer thinks of them. So this is a mind numbing course, but a very necessary and very valuable course. So I would invite all of you to talk to anybody that already attended last month or last week in February, and then sign up for the next one in May. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Dick. And like we say, restorers spend a lot of time, effort, and money getting their technicians trained and certified, and we feel that they should be doing the same with their marketers. I've been seeing a lot of the Facebook posts. What should I do? Should I go to Texas to help out? I've probably got 40 of these texts and personal messages over the weekend. And never once did I say, absolutely, get your butt over there. They could use the help and you can make a score. Because there's no real way to assess whether or not there's a simple yes or no to this. The attraction is very, very high. Just like in the summer when the hurricanes hit, it's all over the news. You read it on the Rebel page or on the NORD page or on any of our other Facebook pages about how exciting it is, and guys are sitting there begging for equipment and saying they've got 600 jobs in the queue. All of that sounds very enticing. The thing that makes this loss even more enticing is the fact that in Texas, especially, when hurricanes hit, the vast majority of the losses are what I call non-covered losses. They might be from rivers or streams overflowing or surface water that gets into a home. Normally, those are non-covered losses, any kind of flooding. The vast majority of the losses here are caused from broken pipes, which in almost every case are going to be covered losses from the insurance company. So now there's an attraction to know that, oh yeah, these are going to be quote unquote money good losses. We know we're going to get paid. Let's again make sure we understand. Working in another state is always very, very different and very difficult. The reputation we have as an industry doesn't bode well when we go into other states, especially during periods like this where we're talking about major catastrophes. There's talk, guys, that this is going to be the single largest insurance event in history, larger than any hurricane like Katrina or Andrew, things like that. The larger than the fires out west, larger than the issues up in Canada. The density of population, the hundreds of thousands of homes that have been affected are going to make this a monster claim situation for the carriers. Understand, when you come in from another state, they're going to be really looking for ways to not pay you. So not operating properly with the proper licenses and registrations is going to be very difficult. Not understanding the way that the quote unquote game is played in Texas is going to be very difficult as well. And then navigating through your paperwork to make sure it lines up with what is acceptable in Texas. Those are all things that are really, really tough. So if you say you're going to go there and you're going to help out one of your buddies and everything you're going to run through your buddy's company and you're just going to do the work for him and you're going to work out some sort of deal, I say, okay, if. And my biggest if, and it always goes back to the same thing, if you leaving is not going to expose yourself at home, then I would say go help out. Go make a few extra bucks. But if you leaving means that you're going to abandon your home base and you're going to put your entire regular business, your core business model at risk, then you should not leave. If you're steady, or even if you're a little bit slow, but you could get 2 or 3 calls from plumbers tomorrow, you'd never want to be able to have to tell them, well, I wish I could, but I sent a bunch of guys to Texas, so I really can't help you out. I really can't get to your loss till Thursday or Friday. Guys, that's a death knell for your business. Your long-term success has to always center around your core business model. You should only be using excess capacity, a lot of extra guys or people that you can hire to go there for you as stringers, and maybe equipment that you've got sitting on your shelves for when you get the very largest jobs. Just send that out. Do not send core people or core equipment out to these response areas. And it's not just Texas, guys. Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi. There have been lots of areas that have been hit pretty hard. Texas got a lot of the press because Houston and Dallas are such large cities. But just understand, don't send your guys out there because you're going to make a score. Normally, when we respond to cats, the money that gets spent is far greater than when you're at home. And the money that you collect comes in far later than when you're at home. So those other things you have to consider are, how long is it going to take you to get paid? I would consider it anywhere from 4 to 6 months. You're not going to get paid in 30 to 45 days like at home. It's just not going to happen. Just the sheer volume of the claims that the adjusters are going to have to deal with are going to slow things up. Number two, you're going to be spending a lot more money on things like hotel, food, things you don't even spend on at home. You're going to spend a lot more money on fuel. You're going to spend a lot more money on supplies because you don't have a warehouse that's sitting there stocked in case your guys need some extra garbage bags or filters. So you're going to spend a lot more money doing a similar amount of work that you would normally do at home, and you're going to get paid a lot later. So your float, the thing that all companies rely on, is the ability to have cash, is going to really be taxed. So once again, just like I tell you in the summers, if you've got extra people, extra equipment, and extra money, by all means, give it a shot. Other than that, you know, what do they always say? Believe half of everything you see. Well, I always say believe nothing of what you read on the internet, especially in these chat rooms. A lot of these are just guys bragging and telling, you know, what I would call BS stories. Don't believe it all. It's not a real home run unless you hook up with the right people and you have everything in place. Real briefly, we talked about paperwork. If you don't have really good paperwork in Texas, the courts are very, very against you. If your paperwork is not very crystal clear about what your rights are and what the homeowner's rights are, you can actually lose in court and get nothing. And also, if you, by any stretch of somebody's interpretation, go so far as to imply that you're talking about the claim and not just your portion of work, you could get in a lot of trouble by the Department of Insurance in the state of Texas. They're very strict about people professing to help out homeowners with claims. Don't ever mention their claim. Don't ever mention their coverage. Just go in there and do your work. And hopefully, if you're working through someone else, you'll be okay. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Bill. During this class last week and really just about every few days for the past couple of years, we're asked, I'm asked especially, if we're going to be offering some sort of a commercial marketing specialist course. They don't often call it that, but it just seems that now that the quote unquote pandemic seems to be moving a little bit past us, or we're moving past it in many areas, there's a renewed interest in contractors that really want to go after the commercial market. And many of you know I have been teaching the marketing strategies for commercial marketing or commercial properties for about 12 years. And so Bill and I have been perfecting and refining the itinerary and curriculum for the next commercial restoration class or commercial marketing specialist class. And we're going to be offering that uh, in August over in Indianapolis. And just to give you a real quick overview of what that might entail, we already know that marketers are visiting insurance agents and plumbers, and they're hoping for a fairly immediate lead or referral of a job, and they're getting it. Especially the marketers that I coach, they're getting great numbers of referrals and leads every single week. The difference between the residential side and the commercial side is that building a commercial portfolio of clients, those that own and manage commercial buildings, is really a totally different strategy. It does require a lot of time. Most effectively, it requires a full-time committed commercial marketer, and it requires having a tangible, current, and relevant pre-disaster plan. Again, many of you know that I created the PREP program, Priority Response Emergency Plan. That's a trademark program that's been around for a number of years, and it provides the tangible book for your commercial clients to see and touch and hold and look at and study and review. The commercial restoration training that we're going to be doing in August over in Indianapolis is simply to help you launch your prep program, understanding that the commercial program is a long-term program. You're probably not going to see much of anything for a year. But once you have those clients in place and you have maintained and built those relationships, you should be seeing with 300 or 400 commercial clients, you should be seeing a loss a month, and that's a really nice frosting on the cake. Most training for commercial work today is focused on production. There's a company out there that does a lot of teaching of the administrative and documentation side of commercial work. And our focus is on getting the commercial clients, that commercial marketing specialist training. So we hope to see you all in August over in Indianapolis. And just remember, you have to have the RMS, the Restoration Marketing Specialist certification, before you can take the commercial class. That is a prerequisite, the RMS class. So hope to see you there. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Dick. How should I be answering the third-party reviewers' questions? Seems like almost every month I get a question or two or 10 about this, and it's becoming more prevalent. And we've addressed this in full 45-minute to an hour segments, but I'm going to just touch on this because in the last couple of weeks, I've gotten probably a half a dozen inquiries, and it just seems like the game is changing a little bit, guys. If you feel that way, you're not alone. Yes, more what I would call mainstream insurance companies are starting to use third-party reviewers. At first, they were reserved for the smaller companies who didn't have large adjustment bases. And now it seems like even the big boys, the Allstates, the State Farms, the Travelers, are using third-party reviewers now. For years, I've always said we should ignore them. We shouldn't talk to them. And I still agree we shouldn't talk to them on residential losses. On commercial losses, yes, third parties are intricate parts of the process. Many times, the third parties are independent adjusters that are a very, very valuable part of the process. Most of the times, third parties are reviewers on the residential side. So all their purpose is to lower our invoice, to come up with ways that the adjuster can justify for cutting a lower check. And that's what we want to fight. But we don't want to fight just by saying, screw you, we're not going to talk to you, you don't count. Because if we don't communicate, the adjuster uses that against us and says, well, because you refuse to cooperate, we're just going to send out a check for what they say. Now, when they do that, nobody wins. We don't win. The homeowner doesn't win. It puts those of us on our side of that equation in a bad light. So let's think about a way that we can communicate, but not directly with the third party. And the best way to do it, number one, is never entertain a phone call from this third party, ever. If they're on the phone for you and for some reason you actually pick up the phone and they're on, you have to get yourself off the phone as soon as possible. The only way that we want to receive information from them is through email. We need to make sure that they put everything in writing. Guys, our need to have everything in writing exists from the very time we sign a work authorization all the way through to when we get our payment. Every step of the process requires documentation. So putting things in writing is the only way in this communication process after we submit our invoice and before we get paid that we can protect ourselves. Have them put everything in writing. Make it clear that they've got one chance. You're going to entertain them putting all of their issues in writing. They're not allowed to give you 6 problems that they have. You resolve all 6, and then they come up with 6 new ones. That's dirty pool, as I call it. That's not a proper way to negotiate. It's not a proper way to ever discuss. Remember, they want to negotiate. We want to avoid the word negotiation. They think we've got an estimate that's subject for negotiation. We know we've got an invoice that's not subject for negotiation. It's only subject for review and discussion. So we want them to bring up all their issues only once. We're going to answer all those issues. And if we can't answer them properly, or if they have come up with a legitimate issue with our invoice, we will correct it. But we're going to do that in writing. We're going to do it once. And we are going to communicate through the homeowner. We're going to make sure that we send our responses to the homeowner for the homeowner then to send it to their adjuster. We want to make sure 2 things, guys. We want to make sure that the adjuster is kept in the loop and we're not dealing with the third party solely, so that the third party is able to talk to their client, who's the adjuster, and lie to them about us. The adjuster needs to stay in the loop. And more importantly, our client, the homeowner, needs to stay in the loop as well. We can't have the adjuster telling them stories about us, how we're unwilling to communicate. We want to communicate through the homeowner. Now, many times that puts the adjuster and the third-party company in a bad spot because they want to be able to beat us up, and they want to be able to use language that they don't want to necessarily share with the homeowner. So it's to our advantage to make sure that everything goes through the homeowner. All of our issues, inquiries, and answers go through the homeowner. Let's make sure we're doing that. Let's make sure every single time we're answering a third-party review, we are making sure the third party is communicated with as a third party. Our first party is our client. The second party is the adjuster who hired the third party, and then that third party becomes the true third-party reviewer. We have to answer their questions, or else the adjuster will use that against us, but we don't have to communicate directly with them. So I always use the expression that we always like to know how the game is played, and then we want to play the game better than them. So these are the rules right now. We can't really avoid dealing with third parties, But what we can do is make sure that we're playing their game better than them. So let's use the homeowner as our leverage to communicate. It protects us, it defends us, and it gives us a much greater leg to stand on should something happen in the future that requires us to take any kind of collections action. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Bill. Lately, I've been getting some calls, a couple texts, some questions from marketers all over the country about having a home and garden show booth this spring, or some other type of more specific event where you can have a table or a booth, with what seems to be a loosening of the rules about social distancing and masks and things like that. We are seeing more and more cities starting to make arrangements and schedule different kinds of home and garden type shows. The question is almost always, should we be a part of this? Should we have a booth there? And then if we do have a booth, what's the ROI? Should we spend X dollars? You know, they want $1,000 for the booth, but there's more to it than that. It's 2 or 3 or 4 days or more away from your office and or your marketing. It can be long hours. Most of those people wandering past your booth are looking for a freebie, a handout, a goodie to take with them. And so I have always dreaded doing these kinds of shows in the past, and part of that was because I approached it with the wrong attitude, and that's all on me. But the attitude needs to be, and now I'm talking like I should have been thinking years ago, but the attitude should be, I'm going to be the most gregarious, upbeat, happy, energetic, enthusiastic, stick my hand out in front of everybody and say hi that I can. And for some of us, that's not quite as easy as it is for others. Many mistakes are often made at almost every one of these shows. And I, not this past year, obviously, but in previous years, I've walked, or my wife and I have walked many of these kinds of shows. And what's so interesting is you walk past a booth, and the booth's 10 feet wide, and they've got an 8-foot table right across the front of their booth. And you can't get into the booth, and you almost, as if you have a child safety gate blocking you or putting that table between you and that customer. That's a terrible way to have a booth. It would be far better that you turned the table sideways along one side and had the rest of the booth open so that the people feel comfortable and willing and free to step into your booth to talk with you and out of the constant stream of people that are rushing by. I see this all the time. I see genuine marketers manning the booth, but as they're quote unquote manning the booth, they're sitting on a stool or they're sitting on a chair. Many times they're reading, they're knitting, they're studying their cell phones, sending texts or whatever, and they have zero interest in engaging those people going by. The other side of the coin is that, Susie marketer that stands there in her 7-inch heels handing out a brochure, shoving some brochure in the face of every single person that walks by. And many of you know that that's also not a great way to engage somebody. Many of us, as we're walking those aisles, are observing 2 or 3 booths ahead to see what those people are doing. And when we get almost to their booth, we avert our eyes to a different direction and completely ignore them and walk by. Well, that's not effective either. That's effective for us walking by and not being solicited, but it's of zero value to having the booth to do that. I have seen booths where they overload the booth. They even bring shelves in and put tons of inventory and stock on those shelves. The table across the front of the booth is terrible. Many people are spending a lot of money on tchotchke giveaway items, and they're literally throwing away, handing out, giving away hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of worthless stuff that you hope will go back to the people's home or desk and your name will be in front of them. But that's an awful long shot. Please don't sit in your booth, or don't just stand at the back of the booth with your arm crossed trying to put a forced smile on your face. It doesn't receive well. Ideally, bottled water, believe it or not, is always a hit, and it costs less than 15 cents a bottle. Bottled water is cheaper than almost any tchotchke item that you could give away, and people appreciate the bottled water. Sure, if you want to go to the trouble of printing out some labels and put your name on it, that's fine. But remember, most bottled water is going to be drunk in the first few minutes and then pitched in the garbage. Ideally, one of the great ways to engage a client at a booth or a show is to approach them and ask them a question that they have to give you an answer other than yes or no. An open-ended question. And when they hesitate and they beat around the bush and they hem and haw, the perfect line to follow up your question is, should we talk? And then get those people to stop and go, well, I don't know. And then follow up with another question and maybe encourage them to step into your booth for a second. You can't do any marketing. You can't do any selling. You can't schedule any appointment unless you can talk with them. So you should try to do that. You should try to collect a business card or get them to fill out name, address, phone number, email. It's a great way to build a newsletter database. And you know what? Probably more important than anything that I've said is that every single person that you engage with, that you talk with, you ask questions with, they respond to you, you capture their name, address, phone number, email, and so forth. Almost always the biggest failing is not following up. It can be as simple as a little thank you note to them. It can be as simple as a, hey, thanks for stopping by my booth. This is Dick Wagner. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have a question on restoration marketing, as an example, or water damage restoration, or whatever. 99% of people that stop by your booth or you engage at your booth, 99% of them never ever receive any kind of a follow up from you. And that is a horrible mistake. Billy?
Thanks, Dick. That was a ton of really good info. And it just goes to prove that, times change and we have to change with the times. That's something that 15 years ago you would have told everybody to shy away from. And now it's really, really good advice. Thanks for that. When's the right time to open a second office? This comes up from time to time when guys are starting to feel like they're doing really well. And is there an answer to this? Yeah, there is an answer to this. The right time to open a second office is when that first office is really operating well without any help from you. As an owner, if you are basically staying away from the business and the business is functioning properly and you show up once a week and you check everybody out and you pat everybody on the back and you leave and you go do whatever you want to do, that's a great time to open a second office. If you are working 50, 60 hours a week or more in your business right now, and you think that your business is doing well because the numbers look good and you're bringing in some good money, so 2 offices, I should do twice as well, that's probably the worst time to open up a second office. The ability to open up an office really depends on the processes your company follows, much more than your top line revenue or your bottom line profit. You could be a highly profitable company, but if it's due to your efforts and your oversight and your babysitting, then that second office is never going to succeed because you're going to have to split your time between both offices, which is going to result in actually hurting your existing business. You need to make sure that your people are functioning according to a process that's set up that has nothing or very little to do with your oversight or involvement. So the easiest way to figure it out is tell me how many hours you're working every single week. If you're working 20 hours or less in your business right now, then you should consider a second office if you're profitable. Now, how profitable do you have to be? I hate putting numbers out there, but generally speaking, if you're making more than 15% profit at the end of the year, after all your expenses, after all of your costs, your marketing fees, your referral fees, your rent, your utilities, after everything, if your profit is 15% or greater, you're in what they call growth mode. You have the ability to make enough money to invest back into your business for growth. If you are in the 10% range, you're not really in the growth mode. You're in a really good spot as a business owner to make really good, steady money, but you're really not in a position to invest in growth unless you're willing to forego taking any money out and possibly having to put money in. If you're in the 5% or lower range, you're in what they call survival mode. You're really just one bad quarter away from being in trouble. So let's make sure we understand that. We need to have a 15% or greater profit in our business, and we need to be spending 20 hours or less in our current business. Now, if you're in the office for 40, 50 hours, but you're not doing anything, before I would open a second office, I would sit there and actually put yourself to the test. Start walking away for hours or days at a time and determine whether or not you really don't need to be there or whether it's really a facade and you're trying to fool yourself and just saying you've got plenty of extra time. Do that analysis before you make the commitment of the second office, and you're going to avoid a lot of costly mistakes. I've worked with many clients over the years who have started with one office and have expanded, and they've done extremely well. I've worked with others who have expanded into a second office and done well, but realized that it was taking away from their focus on the main core business and their core office, and have since closed that office. Neither one was a right or a wrong decision. The right decision is the one that works for you. I will tell you, in every instance, when I'm coaching somebody, I'm very sensitive to the time management of the owners. Remember, guys, at the end of the day, I don't want you to own a job. I want you to own a business. I want you to have as your end goal, make more and work less. And however we can do that is what I want to do. So if you've got your first company and your single office working really well, great processes, great organization, and you want to expand and you want to try to replicate that and start taking that cookie cutter model and expanding it to other locations, I'll be the first one to say, let's go for it. Let's do it together and let's turn up that spigot. But let's make that analysis first. That's all I've got, Dick.
Thank you, Bill. On behalf of both Bill and myself, thank all of you for signing on, watching. Look forward to hearing from you. Look forward to seeing some of you in May up in Atlanta. Thanks so much on behalf of the CREST Network. Bye-bye.